What's up? What's up? Welcome to the Nothing But Net Worth podcast, where we have conversations with prominent coaches, athletic directors, and NIL athletes discussing critical topics around financial literacy, entrepreneurship, and much, much more. My name is Hassan Thomas, former student athlete and current promoter of all things financial wellness. And today, we have author, financial expert, keynote speaker, and the founder of Financial Footwork, Miss Hillary Seiler. How are you? How are you, Coach Hill?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me. I love your energy, man. It's always so contagious.
You know I'm gonna turn you up. Did I get the last name right?
You did. Yeah, I'm impressed.
Hey, okay, on the first take.
There we go. That's what it's about. That's knowing your homework.
Come on now, I gotta study, right? I'm super happy to have you here, Hillary. I know I found out about you when I jumped into the financial literacy world around 2020 when I graduated, and I was like, she is doing some amazing things. And just to see the progression, because when I jumped into this financial literacy space when I graduated, there was a lot of people doing it, people were trying it out, but 4 years later, we're still here. We're still making impact. And we've increased that impact. So I would just want to give you your flowers for all the great things you're doing and clap you up real quick.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much. And same, man, like the work that you're doing, the people you're impacting, there's a huge space out there for all of us to work in. And if you are good at making an impact and connecting with people, finance is a great place to do that.
100%. So how we normally like to start off our show, we start off with a segment called the Financial Coin Toss. I'm going to ask you a few either or questions just to see where your head's at, all right?
Let's go. I like it.
All right, bet. Let's get into it. So, in your opinion, would you rather invest into the stock market or real estate?
Stock market.
Oh, okay. So I've had about 13 interviews for this new podcast. You're the second person to say stock market. So why is that?
I tend to like my money to work for me in ways that I can physically see it on a daily basis, and an asset that somebody can't destroy in the sense that, someone can't divorce me and take my house from me, and or a tenant destroys it, which has always been a concern for me. That's an own personal fear, right?
Yeah.
So that is why I like art. I love art, and I absolutely love putting my money to work through other companies.
Makes sense. Putting your money to work, having that passive income coming in, that pajama money, as I like to say. I want to know though, if one of your college athletes asked you, why should I invest my money? What's your response to that?
Let your money work as hard for you as you're working for it. Why wouldn't you? What's stopping you? Investing doesn't always mean taking a risk in the stock market. Investing for some people can mean a high yield savings account paying you 5%. Yeah. Investing can be putting money in a bond and letting it mature in a year because you're going to get your investment back. Now, if the yield curve adjusts or inflation increases, it's probably not going to earn as much in that type of investment vehicle. But just sitting on cash doesn't do anything for you. And you've worked hard to earn that cash. So why wouldn't you learn the different methods of growing that pot so that it yields you more money? My favorite analogy, and I heard this it was one of the best sessions I've ever done with the NFL, and it was my first year with the Miami Dolphins, and Cam Wake, God bless that man. He's wonderful. He came to every one of my sessions as a veteran, and Hassan, this is what he told me. He goes, Hillary, you got to teach them about their chicken. And I said, I ain't teaching them about their chickens. He goes, teach them about their chickens. I said, all right.
Break that down.
So I was like, all right, let's talk about the chickens then. So I said, come on, Cam, let's analogy these boys. And so he came down with me and he's like, you got that fat chicken, you got that fat paycheck, and you really just want to deep fry that bitch. You just want to deep fry it. And you want to eat the legs. But if you don't do that and you fatten her up a bit and then she starts producing eggs, you can get more chickens and you can live off those chickens, and you let your little golden goose keep producing the eggs so you can live off that like a prince for the rest of your life. But if you live like a king for a day off your one chicken, you are not doing anything for your wealth. And when I explained that with Cam to our group of rookies, they were like, that's real. And it is, because once you have it, if you're not allowing it to work and you just do this with it or put it in the wrong vehicles of investment, then you lose it. And
So
it's
is
hard
that
to
the
rebuild your
piece?
chicken.
Is that the because what I want people to understand is the end goal, the big vision, the big payoff. So is that the reason why, personally for you, is that the reason why you started to invest at 18 because you had the end goal, that lasting vision that you would be able to live off that fat chicken forever while your other
Yeah.
chickens are running around and doing what they're doing, but you'll be able to have that kind of that backup plan? Like, what's the end goal from your investments?
My end goal is that my investments produce enough money that I can live off of that money and never touch the principal balance. And that's what your
Gotcha.
chicken is. It's your principal balance, and the eggs are the interest you live off of. And then that interest, if you don't spend it all, you fatten up your next chicken, and then maybe you go buy something else that's kind of fun or a little over the top. And
Okay.
at 18, I had no money. I was absolutely flat broke. There, no joking about it. No two ways to Sunday. I was broke. I was
Hmm.
broke up until I was about 25, and then I started really taking the time to maybe live a little less expensively is a good way to put that. But I found ways to save money and I found ways to invest, knowing that my end goal was always going to be that I wanted to retire at 50. Some years I may not need as much, some years I might need more, and that I
Hmm.
would be able to find that really nice balance and give myself that financial security and freedom.
Where was that specific moment for you? Take us back to it.
Yeah, after my mom died, about a year after my mom died, I got a call from a friend of mine who was in the NFL. And rolling back to Oregon State, we were actually really good at football when I was in college, like almost Rose Bowl contenders. So we were pretty
Wait,
damn
wait,
good.
wait. Or no, that's Oklahoma State. Who did y'all have? I was
Victor
about to say.
Butler, Sammy
Hmm.
Strotter, Brandon Hughes, Andy Levitri, Shane Morales, the Quiz, and the Rogers brothers, James Rogers. Like, we had a bunch of guys drafted.
That's who it was.
Yep.
That's the Rogers brothers. Yes,
Yep. And
yes, I
Keenan Lewis
remember them.
also went drafted. So the year I graduated from college, 8 of my friends went in the NFL draft. It was the largest draft class Oregon State has ever seen in the history of the university.
Oh yes, I know y'all were lit those years. I know y'all.
We were
I know
good.
y'all had some good times.
And I knew a lot of those guys, but I was friends with 2 of them, really good friends with 2 of those guys.
Yeah,
And they also knew my mom really well. They knew my story. They were
gotcha.
actually my neighbors in college, and they were good friends with my mom. She would bring them like brownies and candy and all sorts of crap she
Yeah.
wasn't supposed to bring them. They also knew how sick she was.
Hmm.
And when she died, they sent my family letters. And these are guys that are high level NFL athletes, friends of mine, but guys that like I didn't even know they found out she'd passed.
For
And
sure.
after all that had, kind of died down, so to speak, I got a call from one of them who had
Hmm.
recently left the Dallas Cowboys. And he said, I'm kind of struggling and I need help. He's like, and I know you can help me because you helped me in college. And I said, well,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I taught you how to build a budget and get a credit card. That's not hard. He goes, no, it's hard. Help. So I started to see a pattern. I got a phone call from another guy and I said, there is a need here and I'm going to go fill it because apparently nobody is.
Wow.
And then by the time I was 29, I realized I was already speaking and building financial programs. That was another thing I was doing on the side. Just didn't
Uh-huh.
realize that I could get paid well for it. And I was doing it for nonprofits. I was helping people transition out of prison. Actually, that's where I got started speaking in 2011, if you want to take it like
Hmm.
really far back.
Yeah.
And yeah, then built some programs. I got a call from the Miami Dolphins. They said, we want your program. And you come highly recommended from 4 players. So I
Hmm.
got on a plane and my interview was 5 days long and they hired me. And that was in 2018. That was in
So they
2018.
hired your company Financial Footwork, or they hired you as like a consultant? What did that look like?
Yeah, I've rebranded my company since I started it. It used to be
Gotcha.
Seiler FEC, Financial Education Consultants. So they hired FEC. But yes, it
Hmm.
is since the forward facing brand is now Financial Footwork. Yeah, they hired Financial Footwork to come in and build them a program, meaning consult with them on how to build it. And then once they
Yeah.
realized I could present the data, they just said, well, we're going to hire you to do it. And
Makes sense.
that that was that was my first team. A month later, I got a call from the Browns. So we took on the Browns in 2018 and also the
Hmm.
Packers. And then by 2019, we had 4 more teams. Then COVID hit and we went up to 12. And then I said, sorry, I can't be everywhere. And we
Hmm.
stopped at 12. Since grown into other markets. But yeah, that was kind of how it evolved. There was always some side project I was doing because I liked teaching finance and I knew
Yeah.
a lot about it coming from banking. So it was second nature.
Hmm.
Then I married it all together with the people I like to work with, which are anyone that wants to learn about money.
That's huge. That is
Mhm.
huge. And I want to kind of bounce back to the college level because you also said you're working with, I think, about 20 colleges and doing some great things with them. So diving into that new realm with the NIL and, name, image, and likeness, what do you feel like is the most important money lesson that these student athletes are not learning that you're coming in and kind of teaching them and getting them ready to be prepared for the pros or just life after college in general?
So what we are in essence doing with NIL right now is we put the cart before the horse and we said, we're just going to give you all this money because we need to pay you for your name, image, and likeness. And we're a little late on the uptick of, if we're giving you this money, what kind of responsibility does that come with? And how do you emotionally handle that level of money? Now, NFL is a whole different level, but NFL is 22 to 23 to 25. So they've had a little bit more life. They've lived with scholarship checks for 4 years. They have some semblance of how money moves. 18 to 19 to 20, not as much. And so we're putting a massive psychological burden on these young men and women. And when I say young men and women, I work with LSU athletics. 3 of the highest paid NIL athletes are athletes from LSU. Paid than most of the men getting NIL money right now. And they're feeling that. And I think the biggest problem that young people have is they're not emotionally ready to take on that burden of money. Asking people that have no experience with it to handle it correctly, which is completely because there's no training. It's like putting someone in a C-level suite job and saying, okay, go run this company, but we're not going to give you any tools. Go figure it out. And don't make any mistakes in the process because you're a public figure. So don't mess it up. Come on.
Come on. Yeah, I see.
You see what I'm saying?
Like you said, they're coming from high school. When you make the comparison to the pros, they've had college to develop. Then now they're around the veterans that are in the pro atmosphere. But those college students, the veterans, are 21 years old. You know what I mean? And you only have your coaches, 4 or 5 coaches. So I definitely see that. I'm telling you. So if in your opinion, from the college, athletes that you're working with right now, what is a huge misconception about what they're going through right now from the outside world looking in? What's a huge misconception about a Division I athlete right now?
I love this because let me tell you a story. I was getting on a plane to go, I don't know where I was going. I was going somewhere. And I was talking to one of my players and we were talking about his car loan purchase. And I was being rather quiet and I was like, hey, I'm not in a place where I can talk right now. And the guy behind me kind of picked up that I was talking to a professional athlete. We were boarding a plane.
Yeah.
And he taps me on the shoulder when I hung up and he goes, aren't athletes just the dumbest? I just kind of looked at him and I said, I'm going to disagree with you there. And he said, what? And I said, you tell me, could you commit to not only being a student, but also an athlete? Your days are completely spoken for every single day of the week. You are told where to be, when to be, and how to be every single day. And you have to perform at the highest possible level because you have your coaches, your professors, and your counselors breathing down your throat.
And that's
how do you get to that high level if you're stupid? And he just looked at me. I said, they're not stupid. They don't know what they don't know. If you have not been educated on something, how are you expected to know it? I looked at him, I go, can you pilot this plane? And he just kind of looked at me. I said, you couldn't because you've never been trained on it. I couldn't. I've never been trained on it. Does that mean pilots are stupid? And he's just like, that's fair. And as I boarded the plane, because I was really annoyed. I was very annoyed at that conversation. And as I boarded the plane, I sat down. I was in business class, nothing fancy. And the gentleman next to me had heard the whole conversation because he went in before me and there's a couple people ahead of me. And older gentleman, super nice. He looks at me. He said, that might have been the most well-crafted comeback I've ever heard. He's like, if you ever need a job, call me, and hands me his business card. And I said, no, I'm good, thanks. He said, but that was absolutely brilliant. And I said, but it's real. They're not stupid, but I hear it. Oh, they're so stupid. They don't know how to handle money. Oh, they're so stupid. They're just kids.
That is crazy to believe that athletes are stupid. Like you said, we're student athletes. So not only are we being, what 98% of the population at colleges are, which are students, but we're 2 to 5% of athletes that are doing even more.
But I would say it is a misconception that every athlete wants to be an entrepreneur. I mean, I have 700 students at LSU. Maybe 20% of them want to be entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
at least while they're in college. Now, could they all capitalize? Absolutely. With a brand like LSU behind them, sure. But is it their focus? It might not be. I've got student athletes that are going into nursing programs. They don't want to be an entrepreneur. They might want to run a hospital wing at some point and go into hospital administration.
Yeah.
They don't want to own a hospital. I've got
Understood.
right? I've got guys that are like, I'm actually really interested in being an architect or an engineer. I have 3 golfers at LSU that are interested in the financial industry and want to go into investments. They actually want to go work on Wall Street. They have absolutely no desire to own their own business. And so the misconception is that you have to be an entrepreneur, when in reality, if you're collecting NIL money, yes, you are self-employed. But it doesn't mean you have to build an entire business around that if it's not the route in life you want to go. And there is a job for everybody. And if everyone becomes an entrepreneur, none of us are going to have work. So literally, there is a job for everyone. We need nurses. We absolutely need tradesmen. I have employees of trade companies that are 18 years old, and they are going to make more money than a college graduate at 30 because they've gone into a trade, they've learned a skill, now they're learning how to run a business. They're going to be able to own a plumbing company if they want to. Or they can go work for a commercial union, which, I mean, unions, whatever, we don't even get into that. But they can go work for a company for life and make $150,000 to $300,000 a year comfortably working 40 hours a week.
Based on the skills that they learned.
Correct. Skill set. So even in the NIL space with athletes, going back to specifically that demographic of people, not all of them even want to be a business owner. And a lot of them are very private and don't want the world to know about them. They're just not interested. Even in my NFL locker rooms, depending on what position the guys play, I can tell you whether or not they're going to have a social following.
Got you. I can see
O-line
that.
guys could care less. Don't want it. Not interested. Keep it moving. Quarterbacks, obviously, everybody sees them. Wide receivers, very flashy position. Everybody sees them. But when you get into like the defensive line or the linebackers, not as much. They're not as forward facing. So even within the job roles on a team, whether that's volleyball, softball, basketball, football, you can see the different personality types of the roles that they play within their teams as to whether or not they're going to want to own a business. Now, that's a generalization.
Yeah.
And there's always people that
That's what you picked
shake
up
a role.
over the time. Gotcha.
Yeah. I mean, I'm one of maybe 3 females in finance that teach NIL. So I'm shaking up a role. I don't care either way. I love working with dudes. It's great. But the reality is that it's not what everybody thinks it is.
So if we put Miss Hillary at the top of the top NCAA regulations, you were the president, how would you fix some of the cons? How would you make this a just and right system? Just on some, not some make believe, but just like, what would you do if we had like a scenario? How would you kind of make NIL right for everyone?
Well, in a perfect world with unlimited budget, because we have that, in a perfect world, I'd want to level the playing field, not for the athletes or the universities. I'd want to level the playing field in terms of education. There needs to be basically a course that every student athlete has to take and pass in order to receive NIL money. And that course needs to incorporate several things, not just finance. It needs to incorporate how to read a legal agreement, because the second you take money from someone, you're entering into a legal agreement. It needs to teach how taxes work and what it really means to be self-employed, because an NIL athlete is not receiving a paycheck with taxes withheld. They are receiving a advertising check for the amount that they signed on, and they have to withhold the taxes, not only for federal and state, but also self-employment. So they're actually hit with a third tax that people don't talk about. So they need classes on that. Also, how to have conversations around money. You're going to hand somebody 60 grand in a year and their parents don't make more than $25,000 a year. And there's obligations that come with that. How do you teach everyone in that social circle how to have a conversation about money positively? And those types of things.
That's huge right there.
Yeah, you have to have that. That's a big piece of the NIL circle, is what's around you, who's around you, and is that circle of influence a good one or a bad one? And that has to be identified by the individual. So in order to accept this level of money, you have to have some training in order to do so. And just like any company onboards a new hire and they have to go through training to take that role, I would require the same thing. I would say you need to have 6 to 8 hours of NIL education on 5 to 6 very specific topics. You have to pass the exam and then you can get paid. Now, Does that work in reality? No, because we're talking about contracts with companies and people. They're self-employed. They can do whatever they want. The issue is that they are students first, and we are now adding this dynamic that puts a lot of pressure on top of them, especially at these larger schools, that says you are going to earn this money, and people are going to know you earn it because it's public. So fair game. And that's where I struggle is I want the competition between universities. I want them to have that competition. That's what makes collegiate sports amazing. I don't want to change that. NIL is changing that a little. From an education perspective, though, it hasn't caught up with what's actually happening. And I really genuinely believe if you're going to hand a college student $50,000, there needs to be some sort of practical application on what does this really mean for you? Because you could you could sink them in a $30,000 hole with the IRS by the time they're 20.
100%.
It's just crazy.
And I think that's why, we're so excited over here at iGrad, to talk with you and potentially partner and collaborate to really bring some of the amazing things that you're doing, the amazing applications, the technology, and the resources that we have over here at iGrad. I mean, it's just an amazing possibility of how we can deliver this information in ways that will actually make change. Like we're not we're not in the business to here, provide this, let's check off a box. Like we're not trying to do that. We're trying to make real change, real impact into these college students' lives because they're not going to be college students forever. They're going to be our future presidents. They're going to be our future doctors, and they're going to lead. We are going to lead the way for the next generation. So by us coming together and putting this education, making it fun, making it relevant, and making it transformational, I think we're really going to see some things change. And that's why I'm glad, we had this conversation, and we're going to continue having these conversations.
A very honest one.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much, Hillary. You killed it today. I just want to know what's next for you. Give us that game, and then also let everybody know where they can reach you.
Yeah. Next for me, oh gosh, there's a lot of things. My business has a lot of verticals, and I have an entrepreneurial spirit. So, I always want to grow, but we are in talks to partner with iGrad, which is really great. I actually have a call about that later. So that's going to be lovely. What you guys are doing is awesome. And I think the symmetry of what I do and what my company does and what you do are absolutely one and the same. So it's that for me is definitely on the horizon. Of course, working with the NFL and now this season, potentially the NBA. We've got our first couple contracts coming through the door. So that's going to be a very fun expansion. New sport, new group of guys. It's going to be great. And then, of course, university space. So I like helping people. We drop a lot of tips on our Instagram page, our TikTok page, which may not be up much longer depending on the ban, who knows. But you can find me at Financial Footwork. And if you have questions, shoot it to our inbox. One of our financial coaches will answer. We're always here to provide support. If there's something you want to learn about, shoot us a message. We'll talk about it on our platforms.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. This was amazing today. I know all of our listeners learned a lot. We dropped a lot of cool gems, had a lot of fun conversations. But I promise y'all, if y'all can take some of these small lessons, these small gems that we dropped today and implement them today, I promise you over time, there will be large results. So again, thank you so much, Hillary. And y'all already know, if you're looking to be educated, motivated, and inspired to not only stay in the game, but to change it, the Nothing But Net Worth podcast is for you. See y'all next week.